Cyndi here from Pathways Homestead. Today we are cutting up the deer that Gary got Sunday afternoon. Anyway, Sunday afternoon. And I'm canning stew so that we have it ready and we can easy pack it for lunches or if we need a quick meal. I usually put potatoes in my stew, but since we've changed our diet, this time I'm going to use a butternut squash. Butternut squash, sweet potatoes, those are all good replacements for your white potatoes in your stews and soups and things. So I know it's a lot of orange, but it's still kind of pretty. And Gary's like, hey, you're not videoing this, you might want to video it. That's not exactly how he said it, but it made me think that. He said, have you videoed canning stew? And I said, no. He said, have you videoed canning deer meat? And I said, yes. So I'm going to show you my stew. I have one ready to go, and then I'm going to show you how I do another one. So first things first, I put bay leaf in the bottom of the jar. If your bay leaves are large, you can put a half a bay leaf in. I had large bay leaves, so I just put a half a bay leaf in the jar. The next thing is going to be a sprinkle, and I have no idea how much a sprinkle is, of thyme. And it's just a few, probably a pinch, because it's not very much in the bottom of the jar at all. And then you're going to want a pinch of rosemary. This is the rosemary that I grew earlier this year, and you guys saw me hanging it up to dry. Rosemary and deer meat with bay leaf, they just make, and thyme, it just brings out a nice flavor in the deer. And then you're going to want about an eighth to a quarter teaspoon of pepper, depending on your taste. We like pepper, so I'm going to put a quarter teaspoon. And I had to measure because I wasn't sure, so it may not be enough, and I may add pepper to it whenever I cook it. And then you want a teaspoon of salt. And I don't know, it doesn't matter where you put your spices. They can go on the bottom, they can go on the top, it doesn't matter. And then you're going to put half an onion in this quart. If you're using a pint, you would do a quarter of an onion. I like onion, so you can, all this is variable. You can put what you like in it. I'm going to put 1 carrot in each one. And you can make them 1 inch, 2 inch. You can cut these carrots however you like them. We like them sliced. You can dice them. Okay. Carrot. And then you're going to want 1 stalk of celery. And the same with the celery, any size piece you want. And the vegetables are varied. You put however many vegetables you want, whatever vegetables you like in your stew. These hard vegetables, you want to make sure you cut a piece off and make it flat so that it's easier and safer to cut. And I'm just going to cube them in about 1 inch cubes. And I'm just going to peel. This time I'm putting my vegetables about 3/4 to half to 3/4 of the jar full of vegetables, and then I just throw in the meat on top and pack it down in there. And you're going to want to leave headspace. I think this is about a 1 inch, so I just fill it to the rim right here. And this is all, we're going to put boiling water over this here in a second. When we get all our jars filled, that reminded me I need to turn my water on. And you can put the vegetables in any order you want. You can put the meat on bottom and then add the vegetables. You can do this however you want. Your vegetables can be any size you want. If you want, you can throw in a little bit of garlic. I'm not throwing garlic in this time. I'm going to add it at the end when I heat it up, when I reheat it. That's when I'll put my garlic in. Got a lone carrot flying around here. If you have a tall enough pressure cooker, I have pressure canner. I have a big pressure canner out in the shed that is a double stacker is what I call it. I don't know, like a 30-something quart or something like that. And I can can half gallons in it. And sometimes it's really neat to can a roast and potatoes in that. Typically, I cut my roast up where I can get it into a quart jar just out of convenience, and I'll can the whole roast by itself. You can do this with chicken. You can do this with beef. You can do it with pork if you like pork stew. You can put sage in it. You can put all kinds of spices in it that you'd like. Sure, I have a cloth or something down so I don't shock the jar against the cold counter, and it'll pick up any water that I spill. You can use a towel. Use whatever. When you're first adding your water, you don't want to fill it completely full of water. You just want it to go to the shoulder of the jar where this starts to come back up for the neck. Just go the shoulder, and then whenever you use your wand to get your air bubbles out, you need to have room for your ingredients to go down. And you're just going to use your wand. You can just use anything plastic. You can use a butter knife, but I don't know. I just use something plastic. That's just what I prefer. I did have a handy dandy wand and it broke. But this works really good. This is just a rubber scraper that I got from Dollar Tree, and I just pulled the rubber ends off of it. It works really, really well. And so, see, I got this jar. It's about down to the shoulders. I can throw a little bit of extra meat in there if I want. And then I'm going to go to the rim right here, this little piece right here, lip, or whatever you want to call that. And that jar is ready to go into the canner. Making a place in my jar for my water to run down with my wand here, just moving everything back so I can get water down in there. I may have too much meat in this jar, and that's okay. I can take some, I can always take it out. Yeah, I've got too much meat, so I'm going to pull it out. And I'll just put it back over here, or I can put it in another jar. And the nice thing about it is you can always, if you get a little too much water like I did there, just go to the sink and tip it out. I see some air bubbles, so I'm going to go again with the wand. You can also wiggle it back and forth. I'm not being forceful with it. I'm just rocking it back and forth, and that'll help sometimes free up bubbles. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is take a wet rag, or it's not wet, I'm sorry. Take a dry rag and wipe the rims. Wipe the mouth off of these jars and make sure there's no particles on the mouth of the jar. See, that one had some particles, and I want to make sure I wipe them off. And then I'm going to come back with lids and rings. Right. So yesterday I spent with my mom, and I'll be spending a lot of Fridays with my mom, and hopefully that works out. And my dad had told us at Christmas to make sure we got all the jars, and we had taken all her canning jars because he didn't want her canning anymore. And we had taken Rebecca's car, so we didn't have room to take the jars home with us. And so when I was there yesterday, I filled up the farm truck, the bed of it. I didn't fill it up, but I lined the bottom of the farm truck with canning jars. And I was able to get several rings and lids, and you know, nowhere near what she had when I was a child. But I cleaned out her pantry of all her empty jars, and her lids. She hasn't pressure canned in years. She was only steam canning. And somehow she used her crock pot to steam can, and she was hot bathing in a stew pot. And you know, it was hard for her. She wasn't real happy that that was one more thing she felt like she had to give up, and she felt like she was giving up a lot. But she said she liked that she knew I would use them. She said she liked that they would go somewhere where they'd be used. And I'll share with her. I won't hoard all her jars and not share them with her. And we'll see. We'll see what this summer brings, and we'll see how she progresses, and just see how things go. But that's kind of a sad moment to see someone have to give up something that they dearly love. And I understood that must be really difficult for her to give up one more freedom. Sometimes we have to give up some things like that for our own good. You know, that's for her own good, for her own health. And that's difficult. Sometimes that's what we need to do. So I'm going to carry on that legacy of canning for her. Most of our pantry growing up, when I was really small, only had home canned stuff in there. Occasionally there would be things that were store-bought, but the majority of it was canned good stuff. She would can poke greens, she canned beets, and she canned tons of green beans and tomatoes, literally tons, and corn, okra, and tomatoes. She just canned and canned and canned when I was growing up. Potatoes, she canned potatoes a lot. I'm going to put these in my pressure canner, and very smart canner, and I really, really like it. I can get 4 quarts or 5 pints, 5 pints or 4 quarts in it. The half pints I can get like 6 or 7 in it. And I really, really like it because you just push the buttons and you can walk away and leave it and not have to just stick with it. So it's a really nice canner. There's many, many, many electric canners now. There's at least 3 brands that I can think of right off the top of my head. So if you're worried about pressure canning, that's one way to get over that fear. It is expensive, but you can sometimes get them on eBay or Amazon pretty cheap. But they're well worth it to introduce into pressure canning. The Carry has a feature that when the pressure is up, it builds up, it locks the lid and you can't open the lid. There are other brands with that same safety feature, and make sure they have that safety feature on there. The other thing is, do not vent the lid when you're canning. That can cause your jars to explode, releasing that pressure too fast. I allow mine to vent on its own time and just leave it, and it'll naturally vent itself. And it's set up that way, and it'll do that. And that'll keep you from weakening your jars from too drastic of a pressure change. It'll also keep you from losing some of your liquid out of your jars. And sometimes if you change that pressure too quick, your liquid in your jars will come out underneath the lid, and then you'll get particles stuck up underneath there, and your jar won't seal either. So there's lots of downsides to venting the steam off of your pressure canner, whether it's an electric canner or on the stove model. So I'm gonna put these in. There is water. I've already loaded it. There's water in the bottom. I'm gonna close my lid, turn it to lock it, close the vent, press low, because this is a canner, not a cooker. Some of them will have different settings on it. This one's steam bath, water bath, a low, high, and then your time. Down here, slow cook, pressure cooker, brown. But if you don't press any of those, it's just naturally except for a canner. So I'm going to hit low. That'll be 10 pounds of pressure. High is 15 pounds. I don't want 15 pounds. I'm going to hit low, and I am going to can this for 90 minutes. Right, and I'll I'm making sure my lid is locked, steam vent is closed, and I'm press the start button. And there it goes. I just walk away. It will build steam. When the steam builds up, it'll beep and start the timer and count down on the 90 minutes. And I'll come back and pull my jars out and show you how pretty they are. I have our 4 jars here. They come out of the canner. They went their 90 minutes, and we're just waiting on them to seal, and they'll make a poink or a punk sound and seal, and the little dots that are on the top of the lids will sink in, and the lids will be concave, and we'll know that we have a good seal. So thank you guys for watching me can my deer stew meat. I have 4 more quarts in the canner, and then 5 pints to put in as well. I have several more pints and quarts of deer to can, and if you'd like, you can watch my deer canning video. I'll put a link up to it up here in the top, and you can watch it to see how I can my deer meat. And thanks guys for watching. It's a snowy day on the homestead, and we're staying inside. Have a blessed day.